Greetings, Marsh here, and welcome to episode 259 of my modded Factorio playthrough. In this episode, we are going to plan a build to generate some more sulfur for our factory. Enjoy. And kind of a question is how much acid do we actually want to make? Like an entire factory's worth? 1,000? Because what does this do? When everything's said and done, how much do we get out of this? Surprisingly, not that much. 168. It could be where they're just set up to match the input of acids. So 168, how much does this make? 168, I see a pattern. And that one's a lot less. But surprisingly enough, those have held up the entire time. What does our sulfuric acid do? Yeah, pretty much the entire factory's worth. So I feel like we should aim for that. So let's do another one. That's weird how it moved the window down there. We want to do sulfur air scrubbing. We could also use puffers to do this too, because puffers are a lot more efficient at processing the wastewater than the wastewater setups are, but puffers are much bigger. So let's see what we can do here. Let's see, we process the sulfuric wastewater. Let's compare both methods and see. So let's take it down the line here. And let's say our intended output was 1,000. What does that require? Well, it's certainly going to create a lot of purified water we don't need. Which you probably just clarify away. That actually makes sense when it says we have too much purified water. That is how that works. And then lots of oxygen gas, which we might take this opportunity to get rid of that oxygen generating setup too, but if it's technically enough, we should probably leave it. But anyway, we're going to have all these filters that we want to link, and it's going to create a ton of acid gas, which besides going into puffers doesn't go into much else. But we grab that, which creates the hydrogen sulfide and hydrogen fluoride. I won't worry about the fluoride as part of this experiment here. So because that acid gas also goes into stuff, this doesn't really need to be set to 1,000. Let's try like 500. That's still too high. Like 400. There we go. So do these numbers make sense? We need the green metal catalyst and filters. So to do this, you actually do have to make the lime filters here. So that is a lot of lime. So do these numbers make sense? Sulfur dioxide gas does not. Could be that this one is not linked. Let's see, let's grab that one out. Because we have an output of 30 sulfur. And then that sulfur becomes sulfur dioxide gas. And then the gas becomes the acid. But the input is still way too high. Seems like this isn't using all of it. Not really sure why, but that seems to be most of it. So does that make sense? Yes, and it's still creating way too much acid compared to what we were planning on. So like 250. Let's see, the inputs make sense. The outputs make sense. And what kind of numbers would we be looking at here? Well, there wouldn't be many of these machines. Those would all basically be one machine if we had speed modules. The difference kind of are these air filters. We would need 104 of them, but I mean, they're just air filters, so it wouldn't be that big a deal. But we would have to like move a bunch of filters in and out. And a lot of these numbers are reasonable, but they would be made much smaller. And that's kind of a lot, but that would also be made much smaller with speed modules, so yeah, it's not that bad, but I have the feeling that maybe making this lime would be the part that takes forever, because we have to cook it from limestone, which is where we would need a bunch of machines, 26 of them, and then we would need this limestone from 38 washing plants, so it would be a reasonable size setup. So let's compare to using puffers to do the same thing. And how many steps would we have, and would it be better? Like, it's certainly more efficient when it comes to the actual resources. So first thing we would do is make the sulfuric wastewater. And we would need some kind of number here. Let's say 200 for now, and see what happens with it. And then the output would be these filters, which would create the acid gas. Uh-oh, more stuff dying. But they're holding out, kind of. Yeah, I can see what's going on here. They spit some fire over there, and then it destroys the turrets over time. Yeah, but robots are here, fixing things as they break. But we have the hydrogen sulfide gas. We might want to keep this acid gas here. Oh. More stuff breaking? Or is it the same spot? Nope. Yeah, they're dying. And it might be a result of the canal builder mod, which when they, I don't know if it's supposed to work that way, but when they die on water, they turn into landfill. So the more of them that come in here, they're expanding the place they can walk. But the reason is because they can walk across this whole thing if they wanted to. So, well, we'll let it keep going for a little while and see how it lasts. But we need that acid gas for the actual puffers. So the puffers will process the sulfuric wastewater. We want to make sure it's set up to the correct thing, where it is 200 sulfuric wastewater goes in. So that's the correct ratio there. And we create 200 acid gas, but we only need 40. But we also need to process this acid gas into the hydrogen sulfide gas. So if we did that, it would be 120. So it wouldn't quite be enough either way. Some of it would have to go back into them. But the ingredient is actually just the puffer atmosphere. So they wouldn't need any at all. So we can just process all of this to go straight into our acid. We have to see what it looks like. So besides getting the sulfuric wastewater, which can be turned into acid, we also get it from the filter itself. So the filter itself will make 240 acid. And then on here, if we split up the acid gas, we'll split it into hydrogen sulfide and fluoride, and it also makes sulfide gas as a process. So we take that full output and turn that into sulfur, and then go down the line of making it acid. That will create 448. So let's come back here. Does this make sense? Atmosphere, puffers, oxygen gas, the filters, and our output is the hydrogen fluoride, which we weren't processing in this calculation, and sulfuric acid. And that's kind of a big number. So let's increase this to 300. Put the speed modules in there. That would create about 1,000. We would need 50 of the air filters and some amount of numbers of the rest of those. And the question is, how many puffer refugiums do we need? They do take modules. So 20. That doesn't seem that bad. So in the end here, the big parts of the setup would be 50 air filters and 20 of the refugiums and some amount of other machines. A lot of those will basically almost be 1 or 2 when the speed modules go in there. Compared to processing it the previous way, where we would need 100 air filters, so twice as many air filters, or we want to do this version, which requires some amount of machines, but the big ones are going to be the ones cooking lime. So it's still big, but we would need 18 machines compared to the 38 because it's essentially half the size, so twice as efficient for making the same amount of acid. Well, knowing that, the puffers seem like they're better. Kind of a question here, though, is what about all these extra resources to make the puffers? The puffers would be delivered from the puffer breeders, and that's such a small number that they can just be sent down here, because basically puffers go in and puffers go out, so you would just keep recycling them. The only things we would need to make is the atmosphere and the pulp. The pulp could probably be sent down on a pipe, and the atmosphere could be made from sulfur and that hydrogen fluoride gas, or we can use other puffers to make the atmosphere for us. I think we calculated before that doing it in this way is less efficient with your acid. It's just simpler. And the setup doesn't seem that big right now. So it would, and these numbers are quite small, so sulfur dioxide gas and hydrogen fluoride gas are a result of this process. We would just pipe it over. So honestly, yeah, it seems like this would be a fairly easy thing to do. Well, let's go through it and add all the modules in. Of course, everything gets quite small when you do so. Okay. Well, we have kind of something to do here, and I guess power ran out. Well, I was calculating that. But I really want to test how everything else works, and I imagine we're still pretty much empty, and we are. And where do we want to build this? Well, this area right here is completely open, so it can be whatever random shape we want it to be. So I guess we can just build our setup here next to everything that we have here to make building it easy, and then we can just plop the design down later. Although, this is using the tier 2 of the air filters, and we actually have tier 3. So that certainly helps cut the numbers down, but it would cut it down equally between the two setups, so that doesn't really change which one is better or worse. It just makes it smaller to make here. They can be in any shape we want it to be. Let's just go down, I suppose. We're finally using puffers for something else than breeding shells and then just dying. So that'll be nice. So we have our 12 here. We can flip them around. The water will need to come in from somewhere, but we can just deal with that later. They do need to get the filter frames in, which I suppose does make sense to put it in the middle, but it also is kind of annoying with this pipe being here, so we can just do it on the outside. This is exactly 15 a second, but each machine probably doesn't go that fast. Not at all. So these yellow inserters are perfectly fine. And let's get that connected so there's less flashing. Meanwhile, the clean filters need to come from somewhere else. Probably on top or on the side, but can worry about that in a second. Let's do the filters part next. So they would come in and down here and get injected in. And actually, just occurred to me that this setup will probably be a lot simpler than it looks. Because we make the sulfuric wastewater, and then the puffers will puff that into hydrogen sulfide gas and acid gas. The acid gas can also be broken down into hydrogen sulfide, and then hydrogen sulfide can be turned into sulfur, but then from that point it can just go into the normal setup that makes our acid. We don't have to make the acid all over again. So let's confirm. What kind of input does this have? 36 per second, and it makes 2.1 K of gas, and this one makes somewhat less than that. But we know that this setup in total will make what we need. So we don't need to be processing it any further than the sulfur step, so that's less machines here. We probably don't even need to build the part working on the acid gas because we have that set up already. But we may want to make it bigger. Obviously, it needs to be big enough to handle all of this. But that's just less machines that we actually have to put down, which is nice. But we still got to make these lime filters, which come from somewhere. Let's just build them on the left, I suppose. We don't quite have everything on this list because we need to handle the mud water here. We'll get some mud out of the deal. But basically we need our 7 blast furnaces on each side. Cooking lime. And it is going to require 3 belts going in. But we could put those belts basically in the middle. We have 3 lines of them. And then each machine needs to grab 6 per second as an input, and each one of these can do that. So if we have a long-handed and a regular, they should find the resources, but maybe make it a yellow for grabbing on the middle so they don't prioritize that one too hard. Yeah, so it would be kind of something like that. And then the other side is kind of the same thing, where we have 2 belts, and I'll just use the faster inserters because which belt they use is much less of a concern. Not sure which direction to put the resources. Let's put them up. So let's copy this. That should be a pretty good repeatable pattern there, so let's just get that in there and then copy this whole thing to the other side. And of course we can't rotate the machine, so we'll just have to copy the little bits by themselves. We might want to concern ourselves with the directions of all of this, so I'm kind of thinking maybe this should be flipped the other way, but we can rotate it, right? Just not flip it? Okay, good. Wanted to make sure. I guess, no, this is actually correct because they're going up. So that actually does make sense, so, because the inputs are right here. So with the outputs going up, we have cooked them into lime, so now they just need to be turned into the filter frames themselves. And wow, when was the last time we used an assembly machine for something? That wasn't, oh hey, we need to build this machine real fast. Like, assembly machines don't get used very much anymore. We need to make our lime filter frame and load it up with speed modules. I guess we'll just do 4, because that would be a little easier than 3. Although 3 could work if we just have a sorting warehouse here and each one of these handles 1 belt's worth. So if it did, we would have 1 belt going in, which needs 25 per second, which is basically more than what 3 inserters can do. So let's just use 4 machines instead so we don't have as much of a problem. So we have our input of the lime, and then the filter frames are going to need to come from somewhere. Let's just say they come in here, and I guess, yeah, they would be yellow. And the output would be in the middle. Let's see, let's space them kind of like that. Pick that up for a second. Let's see, let's get all these into a sorting warehouse. Just set it to 1 stack, so these could come up. Which gets the filter frames on the way out. Oh, we do need to get fuel in here as well, which actually could work fine because we have 30, 30, and then we have half a belt here. So half of it would be like limestone and the other half would be the fuel. So that could work fine. I don't like pushing it that close, but it does work, so we might as well. And we don't have to smash this super close together. So let's go with something like this. Luckily, we're nearby where the bots are, so things happen quickly. It's always fun to watch them do this. Well, this would be the output of the new filter frames. Oh, those poor robots. There should be charge ports here. The cleaned filters would need to come in from somewhere. So then the next thing down the list, and we can get all that carbon dioxide hooked up later, but the next thing down the list is making the lime, which could come in through the top or the bottom. It might make more sense for it to go down, up, down, kind of like in a zigzag pattern to make it look square. So knowing that, we need a bunch of these. And might as well just grab them. It's getting harder and harder to find the machines in here. Probably should have spent more time making them sorted in a logical way. But there they are. So they're going down, which I guess would be like this. Guess we'll need 10 of them. But they need to be spaced so they have room for their pipes. Something like that going down. Then we can kind of spin these the other direction. Requires a few extra pipes. But now they all cross over and share the best they can. So limestone would go down, but we have slightly too much for 2 belts, so we're going to need to do 3. And then they need to go into a sorting warehouse. Might as well put them on the side. Set to 1. And actually we should make sure this is the final spot for this. Might as well line it up, give it some spaces, and put it in there. So that's in there. We're getting close to the edge here. So we might as well just start a new set from over here. Let's just do them in line here. 1 to 2 to 3 with the water pipes on the side. Although we probably want them down. That's actually probably a okay spot to put it. Let's line it up on the top as well. The mud water comes in through pipes on the side here. And the water somewhere else. But that works out nice and cleanly for everything else. We do need to get some mud out of here. They're probably going to go up. Let's see, I guess these aren't quite placed in the same spot. So let's move it 1 over. That's all connected. So they make the mud water. It gets sent into these machines. They send their mud somewhere. The machines make the limestone. They get cooked in the lime. Sent up here, mixed in with the fresh filters which come from somewhere else. And then sent into the air filters to make the dirty filters. The dirty filters now need to be processed, which we could always just do on the other side of this setup. Although, would it make more sense to leave that side for the puffers? Probably. We need some liquefiers. Might as well just keep them in line here. We need 3 of them, with stack inserters picking up the filters, and then stack inserters picking up the clean ones. And then up there they go. This creates the acid gas. We do need the setup to make more, and we've got to handle these metal catalysts. It's already a fast machine, so I guess efficiency and pollution cleaning. And basically 1 machine, so we don't even really have to worry about it. So we got these machines. We're not sure exactly where they'll go, but just put the 3 down for now. Worry about hooking them up later, but it might be slightly cleaner looking if they were in the middle. Pipes are missing for construction. Are they still being made? Yeah, they are. Hey, robots are finally delivering the stuff. Looks like they're coming from kind of far away, which is contributing to that. And still, the ant line of robots picking up all these orbs continues. And we are getting, wow, really overloaded with some of these. They're about to run out of places to put them. Well, if that's the case, I kind of want to turn that setup on and have it just always burning. So sorry, robots, but I'm going to have to leave the network for a while. But basically, just turn that on and have it always on. Just burning those orbs away. Because it doesn't seem to be going through them very fast at all. Actually, one thing I'd also like to check is how fast can that setup actually burn the orbs? Because if it can burn them fast enough to benefit from an expansion, then we probably should just expand it. But yeah, our solar is fine right now, but it's almost too fine. Because we have way too many orbs, and I think that the turrets have basically cleaned up most of the orbs that were sitting around the wall. I wasn't doing anything before about it, because I figured, well, there was a lot of orbs that they needed to clean up. But now it's mostly clean and they're just picking up dirty spots. Well, occasionally. Sometimes they just decide not to run for whatever reason. But most of this is clean. And yeah, they're not running either for whatever reason. But I don't quite understand that, how sometimes they run and sometimes they don't. We basically should just be burning it all away. So how much could one of those take? Of a small alien artifact, they can go through basically 10 per second. And if we have 2 groups of them, that should be more than enough. So actually, here's another question. It's like, don't we have upgraded machines? We kind of do. So I want to go through this again and kind of see what we can do. So we want to generate power from steam engine 3. And from that, we need 465 degree steam, which comes from heat exchanger 2. And that heat exchanger 2 needs heat from a burner heat source. And that burner heat source is going to be burning small alien artifacts, which are the 10 megajoule version. Switch these to input and say we have 30 of them. What are we looking at? A total of about 30. And we have, is that 40? Yeah. So, if these are all upgraded, we couldn't quite max out the belt, but that's alright. Let's use the upgrade planner. We want to upgrade from, let's see, we want to go from burner heat source 1 to burner heat source 2, and heat exchanger 1 to heat exchanger 2. And uh-oh. Oh no. Oh no. They're getting through. Don't destroy my oil residuals. I need those. Ah! Well, we lost some barrels. Is that all of them? Kind of. I think there's still more of them up here. They went after the radar. Of course they did. And it looks like those turrets over there are shooting. Kind of feels bad, but I think we need to extend the wall higher. So, I guess we lost a great deal of our empty barrels because these warehouses were destroyed. Luckily, those aren't too important. Well, I guess we did lose this warehouse, though. So that's something. Well, lesson learned about trusting the biters to not do biter things. That is a problem with allowing them to walk on water like the player can. So eventually they die enough times and they create a pathway through. Okay, well this will continue, I suppose. I'm not sure how high to take it. Let's see here, we want to try to get something that repeats. So it looks like it would be basically this. And I guess for now the wall will just stop here. And hope they don't get through. And I guess I'll just take the wall all the way to the end. It does cut off some of our space here. Oops, wrong spot. But it's probably the safest. So the biter attack was well timed in that sense, because we were just working on finding a way to spend all those orbs. And then they're like, here's some more orbs. Oh, by the way, we're going to take some of your buildings with us. Forgot to include the artillery in here. This is going to be like for like. If those biters want to damage my factory, I'm going to damage their nests. Okay, eventually all the ammo's going to get here. And we have a new wall and some biter orbs in some strange places. But they actually took out quite a bit, because I think all these warehouses were basically full of empty barrels, so no more empty barrels, and they annihilated at least one of these warehouses full of residuals. I don't remember how much we had before. I thought it was in the 500,000s. So they might have broken a few of these, but oh well. Hopefully that holds them. How is the rest of the wall doing? Kind of looking for orbs on the ammo belt. And if they're there, there's not very many of them. Of course, their turrets aren't collecting orbs anymore, which is super annoying. I don't understand why sometimes they do and sometimes they don't. But that's how it works. So, before all that craziness happened, we were setting the upgrade planner to upgrade this setup. And actually, while we're here, we might as well upgrade the heat pipes. The heat pipe 2s as well. So, question, if we create a new blueprint with those upgrades, does it include the upgrades in the blueprint? Awesome. It does. So, we just need to copy this thing and ideally get all of it. And it's got to have those tier 1 power poles in there so it doesn't reach too far. And it would basically come in right here. Although, because of the way the ratio works, we don't actually need any of those. Because that's how these other setups are done. We want the heat pipe 2s going through. We don't need any of these. So I guess we can just kind of come in through here. Okay, so all of that should be connected. Well, that's definitely not going to work there. We don't have the middle hooked up to the same power because it's getting its power from that setup there, which helps it start from nothing if necessary. And then go back to find our power switch, which, how about we put it right in there. And it'll get its power wire there. But actually in this situation, I think I kind of want it to be on all the time, just to burn through all of those orbs. So let's unhook it from there. So this gets all of this in here, and that's a lot of plastic pipes. So we should upgrade all of those as well. Who needs nuclear power when you have biter souls to burn? Because that's basically what we're doing here. Although this setup seems like it's always running. And that shouldn't be the case, because of this wire right here. There we go. That shuts that off. Both those things are running at full blast now that the heat pipes are connected and warming up. So we do need water. And will this tell us what the water requirement is? Let's see. We need 120, and we have 10 on each side. So 1200, which is 3 pump jacks on each side here. Might as well connect it to the same area as the power pole. And this isn't quite as ideal as the other setup because this will require power to make power rather than having its logic separated. Since we have other setups that are built that way, I think we're fine. All hooked up. And these heat pipes are probably going to get quite hot with this thing running. But the great thing about biter orbs is they create no pollution at all. So it's free energy essentially. And this right here should basically be it going at full blast. Although I should have come in here and did the neighbor bonus, which they would have a neighbor bonus of 2. Which means in total we would need to have 222 of these. And what do we have? Right up to here. Not quite. So that kind of implies we would need even more than what we have. Oh, I know why that is. Because the neighbor bonus of the better heat sources is higher. With the original burner heat source, it was a 50% neighbor bonus. And now it's 100%. So as a result, we can get even more heat out of it. But kind of the question is this too far to send the heat all the way down here? That's pretty far away from where the heat sources started. So I'm not sure we would get full blast there. Oh, there's a heat pipe 1 in there. That would affect the output a little bit. There we go, now it's going up. So kind of the question is it going to get hot enough back here? I don't know, it kind of seems like it is. If we can get by with another one, then we can get by with another one. If we did build 3 of these, we would have slightly too many of them, but might as well. I kind of really want to use all these biter orbs. And that's what it would take to use 30 of them a second. So, let's do it, I guess. This can go right here for now. We would probably get powered from this setup, but that is okay. Let's copy basically the whole thing. And close enough to connect everything, but not to anything else. Man, we are making a lot of power from biter orbs. So is our wall good now? Pretty much. Biter orbs are being collected. We're farming biters for power. Well, they're the ones doing all the attacking. Yeah, that biter evolution's going up a lot faster than I thought it would by doing this, so that's not great. Alright, that heat pipe is getting warmer. Eventually it'll get to the right temperature and max out all these heat sources. It sure looks like it's a lot of pollution, but it's actually nothing. That was a bit of a detour from making our acid builds, which itself is a bit of a detour from making ingots. But these are all things we kind of need to do here. But that's the end of this episode. On the next one, we are going to finish up with our puffer sulfur generator and build it. Thanks for watching. I'll see you later.